I'm Johnny Smith.
I'm Richard Porter.
And this is Smith & Sniff, a podcast in which two friends talk about cars and many other things.
Now look, we don't normally do car news on this podcast.
Not really.
Or we do, but we do it like 6 weeks after it's happened because we're very useless and forgetful.
And we'll put a spin on it that no one really asked for.
We talked about cars quite a lot last week, and we had quite a few people going, no, that's fine. We enjoyed that, which I didn't expect, because usually we get told off for talking about cars. But let's just shuffle over to the motor industry news desk, because
it's steaming.
It is. And we need to talk about Gerry McGovern. Hair. Because let's be honest, everybody else is, so why not? But I also think that there's been a great deal of chatter that's sort of incorrect or lacks any sense of knowledge about how the car industry works.
Yes.
As you probably know, the news broke last Tuesday that Gerry McGovern was leaving Jaguar Land Rover. The implication was, in fact, he had left extremely abruptly.
Yeah.
And there was lots of hyperbole in the coverage about he was marched from the building.
Yes.
And all of this. Now, this was all a leak. There was nothing official. For me, this was a very strange day because it was last Tuesday. It was the day of Quentin Wilson's funeral. And I was just getting ready to leave to head to that when someone I know who's very well connected in the car industry said, McGovern's going from JLR. And that was all the message really said. So I thought, oh, right, retirement. Because the fact is that Gerry McGovern turned 70 a couple of months ago.
Wow.
So he is well past retirement age.
I didn't know he was that old.
And I'd always assumed he's just hanging on in there till the new Jaguars are launched. Or at least the first one is, the first production car. And then he can go,
yeah,
there you go. No need to thank me, I'm off. And that'll be his sort of swan song. So I thought, well, maybe they've gone, hang on, no, you can't keep working past 70. You know, there's all sorts of policies in place and so I'm afraid you're going to have to just hang up your hat. And then I went to Quentin's funeral. Now, I should have guessed something was afoot because there was a very senior JLR comms person there that we know. And he left extremely quickly as soon as the service was over.
Oh.
And it was probably because there was trouble at Mill.
His phone was melting, yeah.
Because I had my phone off for a large chunk of the day. And it was only when I got back to the car after the wake that I took it off aeroplane mode. And it went absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
With WhatsApps and emails and all sorts of stuff. And I was like, and it became clear that the story that had leaked was McGovern's been booted.
That's right. And then, like you say, it sounded like he'd been kind of forcibly ejected from the business and the building. And I don't know if that's the case.
I have a theory about this. Now, the thing is, I think it's quite interesting how interested people are in this whole situation. That's partly, I think, because he's been there for 21 years. And that is a long time to be the boss of design anywhere. Mm. And let's give him credit where it's due. He has overseen, I think, a range of very good-looking and very successful cars in the main. And he's masterminded things like successive generations of Range Rover, 2 of them. And there haven't been that many generations of Range Rover. The scope to royally screw up the Range Rover, I think, is much greater than people think.
Yeah.
It's one of those cars, like the Porsche 911, like the VW Golf, where it is sort of the nucleus of the company in many ways, and you have to gently evolve it whilst not letting it stagnate. That is a tough thing to pull off.
It's a sacred item, isn't it?
Yes, and of course people have opinions about it as well. If you get even one little detail wrong in some way, and I know that there was a lot of flack for those panels on the doors of the lash shape one, but otherwise I think generally people go,
I don't know what you're talking about.
That is a handsome car. It's also weathered really nicely, I think, and the new one I think is a very good looking car with some lovely sort of subtle details that evolve it and make it look modern. You know, depending on how you spec it, it can look actually, you know, quite discreet and tasteful, and you could see the king getting out of one, or it can look like it's been ordered by Kim Kardashian or someone. And that's part of the skill of the designers and the colour and trim people and stuff, is they've done a really good job, I think.
Yeah.
So, you know, that fair enough. Gerry McGovern has overseen There's been a lot of coverage as well. This always slightly bugs me, but I understand why. That people always attribute entire car designs to whoever's in charge of design at a car company.
Yes. Like it's one person with a clipboard.
Exactly, yeah. He's got one sheet of A4 and he's going, oh, God, I've got to do a bloody Range Rover again. But that's the thing. Design directors don't design cars. They sit in meetings, is the truth of it. They are there, though, to be the tastemakers. They set the tone. They approve the concepts that will be evolved into production cars. So they are the ultimate gatekeeper, but they're not sitting there sketching or rendering or doing the clay modelling or anything like that. There are huge teams that do the actual hard work. But they are the ones like Roman emperors who go, yes, no, kill him. And that's how it works. But then the car comes out and all the hundreds of people who've worked on it and the maybe one person, maybe a team who came up with the language for that model, they get shuffled away behind a door, and to a greater or lesser degree, the design director gets to go, here's my new car. And that's just the way it works. But I think, it's worth saying that.
But they're a conductor of the orchestra.
That's it. That's a much better way of explaining it. Yeah, sorry, I should have just said that.
And the conductor has to know what everybody is doing and where they should be and where they shouldn't be.
Yes.
Because ultimately, that little stick carries pretty much all the clout on the night off of the proms and all that. So how many last nights are there of the proms? I get very confused with that. I know it's a slightly different issue, but it seems to be every night is the last night.
It's true, isn't it?
Yes. What about the first night of the proms?
First night of the proms where it's not full of people wearing Union Jack hats, because I find them annoying. Anyway, so I think that's one reason why people have an opinion about Gerry McGovern, is because he's been there a long time. He's overseen a lot of very familiar cars, and so people sort of have an opinion. But I think also people have an opinion about Gerry McGovern because he is quite a divisive character.
Very much so, yeah.
People are fascinated by the man himself.
Yeah.
And I would say that Gerry McGovern's relationship with the media has always been tense, perhaps would be the word.
I think he lives behind a facade. I think he's quite a shy person, believe it or not, and he has his guard up. So you never really see his true personality or on the outside. And compared to other designers and people in high up positions within the industry who come across quite warm and approachable, Gerry's not. Yeah. Gerry's never been approachable. But whether that's intentional, I don't know.
He didn't come from a privileged background, and I think that slightly informs his attitude, which is that he is a little bit on the back foot because he thinks that maybe people don't think he deserves to be there. Oh. Despite a vast body of work that says, no, you're up to it, mate. You can do this.
Yeah.
So I think that slightly informs his attitude to the media because he doesn't enjoy their criticisms of his work or of him personally. Nobody likes being criticised, but on the other hand, you have to say, look, you're the design director of a very well-known firm. Unfortunately, this is part of the role, is sucking it up. But instead, it led to this rather prickly relationship with the media. There was a preview of the current Range Rover in the Gaydon studio complex, and we all sat there on some chairs arranged in the viewing room, and McGovern stood up and did a little speech. Henry Catchpole was in the front row. Now, we know Henry, very affable man, but he's at work, he's listening to what's being said because he's got to take a note of it for a story, presumably.
Yeah.
McGovern started speaking, and then he stopped, and he looked at Henry, and he went, cheer up, you're at the reveal of a new Range Rover.
Yeah.
And it was the rest of us were like, whoa, easy there, fella.
I was at that. I think I was in the front row at that event.
You were, yeah. I remember you were there, yeah.
He took a pot shot at me as well.
Did he?
He did, yeah. And I was extremely close, because I have nothing to lose, of just calling him out on all the things that I think he should be doing.
The converse of it is that kind of outspoken style sometimes gave gold. And actually, I was thinking about this, weirdly, given that the news of his departure broke on the day of Quentin's funeral. The first time I met Gerry McGovern was with Quentin, and we were filming at the Los Angeles Motor Show in, I think this was the year 2000. We were having a break outside, and Gerry just wandered past, because at that point he was at Lincoln, so he was based in the US. And he knew Quentin, and he seemed to like Quentin as well. So they sort of acknowledged each other. And then Gerry came over and he sat down with us. And I'd never met him before. I was a little bit starstruck because it's like, I've seen him in magazines. He's the bloke who designed the MGF and the first Freelander.
The Freelander, yeah. I found one on someone's front garden the other day with the extra, the body kit with Allen key bolts and ribs on the Freelander.
I
don't know what, I'm sure it's got a name. But there was one on someone's front garden with that full kit on it.
Did it have those 3-spoke wheels on it?
It did. It looked so 90s. I actually liked it. It was a proper Radwood contender in the making.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
That body kit's got to be super rare, but...
Yeah.
Anyway... No, so yeah, that's the first time I ever encountered Gerry McGovern, and he sat down with Quentin, and I was just there listening in, and he was sort of disarmingly blunt and honest, and was telling us how much profit per car Lincoln made on the Navigator, which was outrageous because it's basically a truck with leather and stuff.
Yeah.
At that point, he seemed candid and quite serious, but then the next time that I met him was when the Evoque was announced, and Evo, for some reason, asked me to go to this... one of those all white Infinity Studios just off the M40 where there'd be a car and a one-on-one with Gerry to talk about the design. And when I walked into the studio, he came out and shook hands, and I said, okay, so should we just sort of have a little wander around the car and you can sort of talk to me about the design? And he just grabbed 2 chairs and plonked them on the edge of the white studio bit and just went, here's what's going to happen. We're going to sit here and we're going to have a conversation. And I was a bit... like, okay, all right. And it was just, there was a very sort of...
like a 80s police detective doing interrogation.
That's what it sounded like.
Yeah.
Cov Copper telling you going to have a chat, and if you didn't, you might accidentally fall down some stairs. There's this sort of slightly aggressive tone to it. So we sat down, we're having a chat. And the thing is, he's an interesting guy to chat to because he's talking about car design, which I think all of us who love cars but aren't designers are fascinated by the mechanics of it and the processes and the tricks of the trade. But then there was this young junior PR who's the only other person in the studio, and her phone went, and she went right to the back of the room to take the call. But they're very echoey spaces, those, and even if it was a big room, you could still hear her voice. And this clearly displeased Gerry. And when she came off the call, he called her over, and he went, is that how you conduct yourself when the design director's speaking? And she's obviously like, you could see her sort of paralysed in fear. And then he just sort of went on and on at her with this very disrespectful, what you've just done, and all this stuff. And I was like, I'm not enjoying this. And he kind of shot me a look like, yeah, look at my power. I didn't enjoy it at all. No. I thought it was unnecessary.
Yeah,
that's the kind of character he was. He just didn't muck around. He was extremely direct, and he needed people to be aware of his status as the top dog.
Yeah, of the power. And it's funny how since this news broke, and it has gone very wide spread, there's been an awful lot of photos of bad hair circulating, but and we are partly responsible for that, but there's a lot of a direct association with this divisive new Jag concept.
Yes.
The electric big slabby velvet kind of finish Jag, which has really divided people, and a lot of people who hate that car or hate the way that the brand did its massive relaunch. I think they're pointing the finger at Gerry, maybe going, right, he did this and there's been enormous backlash, and so that's why he's had to go. We're pretty sure that's not the case, right?
It's not. It's I've heard some people who should know better peddling that line, and I find it deeply disappointing and frustrating because it betrays an absolute lack of knowledge about how the car industry works and about lead times and all sorts of stuff. Absolute bollocks. It is no secret that Gerry McGovern wielded an awful lot of power within Jaguar Land Rover and, sat at board level. But he was not the only person there. There is a board, and there is the company, Tata, that owns them. I'm sure that with his force of personality and his passion for design, he heavily pushed for Jaguar to go in that direction, but he did not just unilaterally force it through without teams of very senior people having to approve it. So the idea that those same teams suddenly went, oh, we've had second thoughts, actually. No, Gerry, you can't do that. In fact, you're going to have to go because you've really annoyed us now. That's absolute nonsense. It's like, that's not how these things work, and certainly not in those circumstances, because the company is well aware, surely, of how divisive that Jaguar concept has been, and of course the associated marketing push. The last thing you want as a company, and for that project as a whole, is any suggestion that you've lost confidence in it and booted out the man who led the charge on the design. Mm-hmm. So you absolutely wouldn't do that. And if you did do that, and if, say, it's like, oh, Gerry, I'm afraid you're 70, you really have got to retire, you go full PR management on this. You put out the statements that say, we're so grateful for all he's done for this company for the last 21 years. There's a quote from him going, I'm so proud of what I've achieved. The usual stuff. It's textbook.
Yeah.
We're recording now on Friday morning. News broke on Tuesday. So far, there's been no official statement. We are still talking about something that is, to all intents and purposes, a leak. We don't know. He could be sitting in the studio at the moment looking at a clay model going, no, I'm not sure about that. This is all really conjecture. But I think we probably know enough people who know enough people that it seems like it is absolutely rooted in truth.
We do.
But the two things that have been going around are, oh yeah, they had enough of him because of the Jag, so they've booted him out. Absolute bollocks. I guarantee that's not the case.
Yeah.
The other thing, from a lot of people in the industry who are aware of Gerry's quite brutal bedside manner, were like, oh, he's overstepped the mark. You know, his outspokenness, his directness with colleagues has finally been pushed too far. There were some pretty punchy rumours flying around on WhatsApps, which aren't repeatable, but
I think that's what it is.
Do you?
I do.
I have a different theory, because Jaguar Land Rover got a new CEO last month.
Yeah.
It's a chap called PB Balaji, who is, or was, the Chief Financial Officer for Tata Motors. It seems like quite an interesting guy because he has a degree in mechanical engineering, so he's not actually an accountant through and through.
That's great.
He feels like he's somebody who, you know, has an understanding of other aspects of the industry. He's worked for Tata since 2017, but almost as soon as he joined, he was also appointed as a non-executive director on the board of Jaguar Land Rover. So he's not come to the company cold. He has some knowledge and experience of it.
Yeah, he knows the score.
There are two things here that to me are sort of smoking guns. One is he's been around JLR for a while. So he's presumably been around Gerry McGovern for a while.
Yeah.
But the real smoking gun about this is that the news of McGovern's departure was broken by Autocar India. So it's somebody who has connections there. It wasn't leaked to a Euro outlet first.
Euro outlet.
So, yeah, like different pins on the plugs. So my theory, is, for what it's worth, is that I think this new guy has come in and he's seen the culture in action in JLR. It's not to his taste. And now that he's CEO, he can do something about it.
Yeah.
So what happened next? You know, if you're that guy and you've gone, no, this is, I don't like the fact that the design director or creative director, whatever McGovern was called, has a lot of power. Well, things are going to change. Again, it's absolute conjecture, but my assumption is this new CEO has gone, from now on, things are going to be different. You don't get to call all the shots. And McGovern has gone, yeah, I do, mate, because I've been here longer than you. I design Range Rovers, mate. Where would you be without the Range Rover, eh? Nowhere. And you can imagine that maybe he said, I don't think that's the case. And this could have led to some beautifully designed fireworks. And so
I can see. I feel like it might have been a face-off scene akin to something from Dodgeball.
Let's hope it was on the roof of the R&D centre in Gaydon.
Yeah,
just
and
there,
I think,
like in Heat.
I think McGovern was a bit like Ben Stiller's character, who I've just totally forgotten the name of, who sort of like points at people and does the sort of the neck, the slitting of the neck thing, and like doing and wearing mad clothes and like standing on his own desk and pointing at people. I mean, we can't go into all the details. You have a hunch.
Well, the truth is, we don't know all the details.
We don't actually.
Again, I have to say, this is all conjecture.
We don't know.
But my feeling is there's been a standoff because PB Balaji has decided that things have to change. He wants to assert his authority as the new CEO. It's nothing to do with Jag. Balaji was on the board. He's seen all of this, I mean, even as a non-exec director, he can put his hand up. He's obviously directly plugged into the mothership at Tata. If he thinks things are going in totally the wrong direction, he can flag it there. It's not that. I think it's just he wants to run the company now that he's got the controls in a different way, and he doesn't want there to be somebody else who exerts a great deal of authority and power.
Yeah.
So there's been a standoff. It's all gone a little bit explosive. But again, back to the smoking gun, it's not outside the bounds of possibility that it's all got a bit succession here, and Balaji has gone, right, McGovern, you're out. And before Gerry McGovern can do anything, he's leaked it to his contacts at Autocar India to make sure the story is Gerry McGovern has just been sacked.
Yeah, there was definitely words about firing and things. I mean, what I do hope, like you say, he's been a very, very successful designer in the same way that you can have very talented musicians who write or perform incredible songs, but they might not be very nice people. I feel like the working environment in the design team might be a little bit lighter now.
Yes.
But I'm keen to see what comes next with regards to design, and whether, because Gerry's has had his kind of his gauntleted hand, velvet gauntlet, obviously, on the shoulders of every designer, and it'd be interesting. And we know that some other designers have left because of the atmosphere there.
Yeah,
it'd be really interesting to see how it goes.
On the one hand, you go, yes, absolutely, it may. It's a nice little sort of clear the air, create a different working environment, a different culture. Converse to that is, I do believe sometimes that the most successful companies and organisations, they need to be a kind of dictatorship. Now, it should be a benign dictatorship, and no one should get shot for dissent. But
what about if you accidentally fell out of a window?
It does happen a lot, doesn't it? Particularly in Russia. I think they need to look at their standards for windows over there.
Their window locks are terrible, and there's probably not enough banisters on flights of marble stairs. I don't know.
But I do worry that they still need somebody with a sort of clear vision of what they want to achieve and the force of personality to get it through, because the worst thing you can have is sort of wishy-washy committee thinking.
Yeah.
I think we've seen it from Jaguar Land Rover in the past. I think when Ford owned them, there was a lot of interference from the US, from what I gather.
Yeah.
I'm sure it will all come out, but I think it's amazing how much attention this has got, and I think it says a lot about Gerry McGovern, both good and bad. The good is that he is clearly a very, very talented design director and has a great eye for things, and by and large has overseen some really, really good-looking cars and some very successful cars.
Highly successful.
But there's also this bit where I feel like when the news came out, the one thing I wasn't detecting in any sort of WhatsApp or email chat or anything like that was a great deal of sympathy.
Yeah.
But it will be interesting to know. So, yeah, I just suspect that this new CEO is a pretty tough cookie, and he's decided it's time for a change. And this has led to fireworks. But who knows? I mean, all that stuff about being marched from the building, it's like, all right, calm down. I think it's pretty standard when someone really, really senior leaves a business, they go straight away.
Yeah.
Gerry McGovern must know the product plan for like the next decade and beyond. It's like he knows everything.
Yeah.
So you don't just go, stick around, mate. I mean, if you want to just fill a bag with Post-it notes and biros and, oh, yeah, that whole product briefing on the next generation Range Rover targets and competitors, that'd be great. You do that, my friend.
Yeah.
You always get asked to leave, don't you? It's just, but it's like marched from the building.
Sometimes, if you're lucky, you've still got a 24-hour door pass, and nobody's thought to cancel that yet. I'm just putting that out there. But
is that what happened to you?
Maybe. I can't quite remember.
It wasn't the same for me, but I was working at a place that went bust, and one of the directors went, well, anyway, this is probably it, Richard, but if that brand new laptop fell into your bag, I certainly wouldn't notice that. And that was how I went freelance with a brand new laptop.
Did you really?
Which was very useful because I had no money, but I did have an almost new laptop. So that's I could you imagine if you'd been there 21 years and had this incredible roster of work behind you, and then they just went, I'm afraid you've got to go. All right, let yourself out. you want a bit of theatre. You want to be escorted from the building. You're hoping that, all people are turning to look as you walk by like something out of a movie.
Well, I feel that he probably had a
disappointing.
dodgeball. He had a dodgeball exit across the courtyard. Yeah. But I think I want to finish this by saying the two things I hope come out of this, and neither of them are personal with Gerry, actually. It's more about the brands. I hope the two things that come out of this are, I hope that Jag rises successfully back into the limelight, because I miss it, as we've talked about before. And I think it's a shame that it kind of got put on ice. And the second thing that I hope is that Land Rover, specifically, not Range Rover, has more of a entry level that is not quite as obsessed with luxury, because I know McGovern, luxury was almost at the top of his focus group, and so it's one of those things which I feel like Land Rover and Range Rover have got too close, and I wish that they were a bit further apart again. And those are the two things that I hope come out of it. And I maybe at some point I'd like to see Gerry McGovern naked litter picking on the M4.
Why would you want that?
I don't know, because if he's done naughty things, he should be punished for it. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. And I apologise for being a little bit serious for the first half of this, but it just felt like we should address it.
Just to change the subject,
Please do.
I saw on Instagram that Bentley have been doing some... I think they've been doing some shoots, some sort of promo launchy related things in the Arctic Circle this week. And what I love about it is the fact that while they were up there, they saw the Northern Lights. And a friend of ours who's a photographer who was doing some stuff for Bentley took some great photos of the Northern Lights. And I've been to the Arctic Circle and never saw the Northern Lights. And it made me think that, do the Northern Lights have beef with the Southern Lights? Do they just constantly go, they're just mocking them for, like, I don't know, being a bit soft and maybe having unnecessary layers of fluffy cloud around them to keep them warm, and things were different in our day and it's so expensive. Southern Lights are way too expensive. Northern Lights are just cheap and honest. Just generally good value.
I'm going to ask a very thick question now. Is there such a thing as the Southern Lights?
I don't think so. But I don't
feel like
know.
I've never heard of it, but I might just not paying attention.
But why would the Northern Lights be... What, I'm going to type it in. Why would the Northern Lights exist if the Southern Lights... Oh, they are!
Well,
yeah, the Aurora Aurelis, the Southern Lights do exist. It's a natural light display in the Southern Hemisphere, similar to the Northern Lights, but visible in locations like New Zealand, Southern Australia, Tasmania, and Southern South America.
I thought you were going to say Southern Lights, similar to the Northern Lights, but soft and shite. Oh, wait, this is from the Manchester.
No, you see, the thing about the Northern Lights is really grinding its teeth and getting cross about the fact that you can't just order a normal coffee. And a cup of tea costs £5 when you're out in a cafe. It's just a bag in hot water.
You've just reminded me, because my brother, years ago, worked for Bentley, and they worked for an agency that worked with Bentley. And he did a thing up in Arctic Circle, I think, or somewhere up cold north, setting a speed record on ice with Juha Kankkunen.
Oh, wow.
Which was amazing. But during that, he got to meet five-time Le Mans winner Derek Bell.
Did he?
Derek Bell just came along because he's mates with Juha Kankkunen. So one day, they were up there for a few days, one day, suddenly there's Derek Bell.
Really? That's so cool. I've been in a I've been in a Bentley with Juha Kankkunen, actually.
Have you?
Not in the, but it was at Goodwood, doing the hill in at the time, the then new Conti GT Speed. And I was in a passenger seat doing journalist stuff, and I was desperately trying to strike up a rapport with him, and it wasn't successful. He didn't. it was quite obvious that I was maybe the 30th person who'd been in the car with him that weekend, and he really didn't want to chat much. I think he just wanted to get the run done and get out of the car and have a nice Euro coffee. But it was a shame because I think I might have snuck into the conversation how excited I was when I used to watch him in Lancia Deltas when I was a kid, and he just kind of he just looked over at me and nodded and looked back at the road again, and that was it. And I was like, okay, didn't get much out of him, but I thought he was going to wax lyrical, but no, he didn't. I was a bit like, he's still cool though. And I've heard he's got some really nice cars in his personal collection, and I would kill to do a Juha Kankkunen car cave on the Late Break Show. Oh, or an idle chat with the Kank, as nobody calls him.
We may have alighted on why you didn't strike up a rapport with him.
I didn't call him.
And go, all right, Kanky, how's it going, mate? Yeah, all right.
Oh, hey, Kanky.
Hey,
Kanky. No, I didn't call him Kank or Kanky, okay? You kanky bastard. Who do you think you are?
Look, before we go any further, we have to do a very important message, which I swore I would do, and usually we absolutely screw this up, and I'm not going to screw it up. And we had an email from a listener called Alan, who said, I'm after some help from the wonderful car community, and I can't think of a better way of reaching out than through you pair of flutes.
Oh, Alan.
My close friend Daryl is currently having a tough time battling cancer, and his wife thinks it would be a distraction if we could arrange for him to be taken for a spin in a Fiat X19, which was his first car.
Oh.
If you could reach out to your brethren of SSGs to see if an owner would be willing to help, it would be greatly appreciated. Daryl lives in Cannock Wood near Lichfield in Staffordshire, as do I. We'd be happy to pay someone's costs in cash, Smith & Sniff merch, pies, or their favourite tipple. Thanks in advance, Al. So, yes, shout out.
Alan, that's really lovely.
Fiat X19 owners. Now, I appreciate it's not a good time of year for it to be Fiat. Moisture-wise.
I was about... Do you know,
but
spoiler alert, you know that scene from the end of that lovely heartfelt Christmas cartoon, The Snowman?
Yes.
When in the morning the kid opens the curtains and it's just a hat and scarf on the ground.
Wait, there's just a targa top and a steering wheel on the ground where your X19 used to be.
And a bit of vinyl.
We're not doing a good job here of selling this.
No,
look, X19ers, you know what your cars are like, but look, it's not always damp, and this would be an incredibly kind and generous thing to do if you are anywhere near Staffordshire or you're willing to travel in return for pies or merchandise.
It's a lovely, lovely thing, Alan.
And help someone out while they're going through a tough time. So if you can help, drop us a line, hello@smithandsniff.com, and we will pass your messages on to Al.
Yeah, and if we can help in any way, we will try. But yeah, that's great, and I hope we do find Daryl a Fiat X19. And to this day, I remember seeing an X19 for the first time as a very small kid, and I thought it was the most spaceshipy car. It had crazy design alloys. It had that huge cooling deck, the mid-engine cooling deck, the cladding. It had lots of plastic on it when plastic cladding was fashionable and new, from memory. And I blimmin' loved it. I've still never driven one, ever.
No, me neither. And I'd love to. I hope they're not disappointing. But I've heard they're quite good.
Yeah, and I have as well.
Also,
big seller in the States.
If you want a real treat, look up an early X19, because they are one of those cars, and this quite often happens to Italian cars. They are so delicate and pretty in their original form, and then over time, more plastic and stuff got added to them. And actually, the engine cover, because the original engine cover wasn't as raised and prominent as it became, because the engine got bigger. But an early X19, they are so good looking. It's like Di Tommaso Pantera or Countach syndrome, where you accept the way that you remember them from the 80s. But actually, if you look at an original, they're much, much better looking and much simpler and more beautiful.
So I've been watching Stranger Things and enjoying the the appearances of that kidnap van in it that isn't a kidnap van. You know, the kind of van that they use to track the underground, not the underground, the upside down creatures with, which has got like angel hair headlining and shag-piled carpet and bad murals and stuff. I've been enjoying that. And I've been enjoying the fact that there's still a Ford Pinto in it. Winona Ryder's still driving a Ford Pinto, it's exactly that green, which was the one that I was offered when I was working out in the States a decade or more ago, and I'm still pissed off that I didn't buy it for $1,000. I just don't understand why I didn't buy it. It's very un-Johnny Smith to just go, yeah, no, I think I've got enough on at the moment. I won't buy that.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like you at all.
I'm still really annoyed with myself for not pulling the trigger on that one, Richard.
I think I've said before, we stopped watching Stranger Things during or just after the first series because my wife found it too unsettling.
Yeah.
This is the last series now that it's...
This is the very last series. So yeah, I mean, I've seen a couple of episodes. I haven't binge watched it because I don't do binge watching, but it's great. I mean, you'd like it just from a synthesizer fanatic perspective.
Well, that's the thing. Just that alone,
it's great.
The synthwave is good. Hey, sort of tangentially talking about synths, I was driving through downtown Bath 2 weeks ago, and a Ferrari Portofino went past in the other lane. Now, you don't see Portofinos around very much, do you? They're just sort of not a thing.
Yeah.
But there's a Portofino. And then I noticed the number plate. And the number plate, I can't figure out how this had been achieved because it wasn't strictly accurate, but it sort of attempted to say hooky. And then I remembered that this was a Saturday, the night before, who was playing live in Bath with his band, but Peter Hook, formerly Out of New Order.
New Order? Goodness me.
Yeah, well,
and you're a massive fan
I couldn't go
of
to this
New
gig.
Order, aren't you?
I know, and I've always thought I'd quite like to see, because Peter Hook plays New Order albums in full in the first half of these gigs that he does with his band, The Light, and then he'll do a sort of mixture of various New Order and Joy Division songs in the second half. And I mean, quite honestly, I'd quite like if he did a few songs by Monaco, one of his solo efforts that I think were underrated. But so I couldn't go to that gig the previous night, but I'd seen it was on, and so I was a bit like, that's got to be. So I was able to surge forward in traffic and pull alongside, and sure enough, it was Hooky Out of New Order, brackets retired, in a Ferrari Portofino. And I found that quite interesting because I know for an fact that for many years Peter Hook was a large Audi loyalist. He had A8s, I believe, for years, and I think he actually before that had an Audi V8.
Did he?
There's a friend of mine's dad worked for a big VW Audi dealership in the Northwest, and I think he'd said they'd had him in with possibly his V8 needing new tyres, and it was quite a young car, and it's because he was doing loads of miles up and down the motorway from Manchester down to just round here, actually, because they were recording the Republic album in Real World Studios, Peter Gabriel's place, which is just outside Bath.
So doing a lot of high-speed motorway work.
High-speed motorway work, but in a heavy four-wheel drive car. It's quite punishing on the tyres.
Yeah. And, now, this was the Audi that just simply was called the V8, wasn't it? For listeners that might not remember.
A sort of dry run for the A8, and it was just a sort of 100 or 200 that was slightly sort of pumped up and had a V8 engine in it, and by all accounts it wasn't brilliant, but I quite like them. I've always quite liked them. I think it was the first Audi that had the framed grille, not the big goatee beard one, but when they first went to the sort of rectangular, the landscape aspect grille. I think that's where that started from memory, or maybe it was on the S2.
Anyway, it's weird that you should be saying that, because I've started to have, after our conversation the other week about Audi all roads, I've started to have a thing about early aero Audis all over again.
Oh,
I'm craving that really simple but aerodynamically efficient, understated shape. I love the coupes of those. I love the 200s. Oh, I do. There's so many models. Big fan.
You know, one of those conditions like, I don't know, chlamydia or something that sort of can lie dormant.
Yes.
In a person's body and then flares up again.
Yes.
I feel like I have that, but with first generation TTs.
Oh, completely. And there's such good value. Them and the Boxster, you know, this similar kind of ilk of car. They're both good looking and they're both fun and well built. No, I love the first gen TTs.
But I think they're, amongst people like us, I think they're getting this growing respect. You know, they used to get a bit sort of told, they didn't get the respect because it wasn't a driver's car like a Boxster.
No, but it also had a hell of an engine, of course, that 1.8T, the 888. It's a hell of an engine.
It's a lusty engine, isn't it?
Oh, it's great.
I mean, I of course wrote off a first generation TT, and so maybe it's unfinished business for me. I need to get one and drive one and prove that I can do that without crashing it. Because I'm not a 23-year-old knobhead anymore. It's
funny you should say that. It's the same as my Dodge Viper thing. I've never driven one since having the incident, and I feel like it's an episode I ought to make for content. Me of revisiting my fears.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I was talking to Chris Harris about it earlier in the year. He thought it was a great idea, and so we should do that. Really, actually, I forgot to say, Stranger Things is featuring a lot of Humvees, and this last series is based in 1987. I think the first series was based in 82, and as I was watching it, I started to look at all these Humvees, thinking, hang on a minute, was the Humvee out in 87? I don't think it was. And then I started smashing through Google, as you do. But I was wrong. 1985, it first saw military service, I believe. So
okay,
I was put back in my box.
I know that the sort of the projects, or they'd be like military commission that led to the Humvee. Yeah, dated back to the 70s because it's part of in a long-winded way, the Lamborghini LM002 story is sort of touches on that. Yeah, because that grew out of a pitch to the US military for what then eventually led to the Humvee. So it definitely is like, but all those military procurement projects, they go on forever, don't they?
Yes.
You go to like there's a museum and there's a thing about the history of the Eurofighter, and you found out that the first prototype was built in 1969 or something. You're like, God, I thought they only came out like a couple of years ago. But
they've got to be proved, haven't they? Like Paul Hollywood's dough.
Yes. I think maybe, because that's the thing, if you just said to me, was the Humvee around in 1987, I'd have been sceptical, because I feel like for us in this country, certainly, we knew nothing of the Humvee until suddenly the Gulf War in 91, was that?
Yeah.
Suddenly they were on the news and you'd be like, what, that? And then
exactly.
And then, of course, suddenly they're in every single Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Even if it's set in the Renaissance.
You've reminded me of the fact that I think, I might have to do a top 5 one day. I think the Lamborghini 002 is ergonomically the worst thing I've ever got in and moved around a car park. In fact, I got out of it and I was so relieved that I didn't have to go out and drive it on the road. It's like, that thing is so shit. I don't want to even be in it again. It was terrible. It was so terrible.
Really?
It was offensive. I was actually offended by it. How could you put something together with everything in the wrong place? And it just looks horrible. There's no room. Nobody's thought this through. It's just appalling. What an absolute mess of a car. I've got no interest in them. I'm really sorry. Wrong engine, wrong car, wrong look, wrong ergonomics, just all wrong. Get in the bin.
Stupid, just stupid.
Yeah, says the man who's got a run show.
Well, sort of, yeah.
Yes.
I don't know why this has suddenly come to mind again, but I've meant to mention this. The other day I saw, pulling out of a lay-by, a bread van Polo from the 80s.
Lovely.
Yes, because you don't see them around anymore, and they were once a sort of mainstay of small cars in this country. And as I went past it, I could see the guy who was craning his head, looking backwards to see when it was safe to pull out of this lay-by. And it was a very young man. I would say someone in their early, mid-20s maybe.
Yeah, it's when I owned mine.
Was it? But then it was still a sort of contemporary-ish car.
Yeah, I had 4 of them.
You had 4 of them?
Yeah. I didn't
realise you'd had that many.
Yeah, I had 1 bread van, 2 coupes and 1 badged as a Derby.
Oh, yeah.
The Derby one, incidentally, was the one that I told you I bought from a car boot sale in Bristol. It had a week's MOT, and I was at a car boot sale buying the usual things like, I don't know, candles and toilet roll and broken pictures and pornography. And there was a guy...
An electric typewriter you don't need for £7.
Yes. And the guy was actually... They were just clearing away, and the guy who had this Polo Derby, and he went... There was a sign in the window, and I went, is the car for sale? He went, yeah, I just thought I'd try and sell it at the same time. He said, it's got a really short ticket on it, but it runs and drives. Obviously, it got me here this morning as an intermittent misfire, I think. And I was like, well, what do you want for it? He goes, I don't want to take it home. He said, I'll just scrap it at the end of the week if I don't get any takers. And I was like, well, I don't have much, because of course you carried cash around a car boot sale then. I said, I don't have a great deal of cash. He said, well, what you got? And honestly, we toed and froed for a minute, and he had a smile on his face. I knew he just didn't want the car anymore. I said, I've got 15 quid in my pocket. And he went, get on then, drop me back at the railway station, you can have it. And I drove it back from the car boot sale. I bought it for 15 quid, and it wasn't crap. It wasn't crap.
In the late 90s, someone I know was offered a proper bread van one for 50 quid.
Brilliant.
And I think they went, actually, do you know what? I don't need another car. That's fine. And I think it just got scrapped. And I was like, even at the time, I was like, well, it's 50 quid. Because I don't know why. I think it's because one of my mates had one. Well, it was his mum's car. But when we were like 17, 18, he always used to rock around in this bread van Polo, which he was able to make go much faster than seemed possible, given they were famously not very powerful cars and had terrible brakes. But maybe that was part of the secret.
The brakes was,
We've talked about this before, particularly in relation to Festival of the Unexceptional, how there's sort of a generation now that are treating cars from the 80s and 90s as absolute bona fide classics, and they find them very cool. But what was interesting to me about the Polo was that is, I didn't clock the reg, but it's near as damn it a 40-year-old car.
They are, yeah, they are.
Which led me to think, like, if this was 1995 when we were, young-ish.
Yeah.
I was 20 in 1995. If I'd had a 40-year-old car in 1995, that would have been a car from 1955. And I just can't imagine that.
It's very interesting you brought this up, because I've been having these moments of like, I bought my Beetle in 96 when it was, 30? It was 30 years old. It's a 66 Beetle. And the generation of retro cars around that era felt like there was huge voids in between 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and then what was new at the time, let's say 90s then. And now, 40 years, mid-80s, 30 years, mid-90s, 20 years, early 2000s, and you just go, none of those are elderly in so much as they'll all do motorway speeds. They've all got functioning heating and like headlights that you can see out with, and a radio, and just things that you'd expect. Whereas if I got a 21-year-old into a basic car from the 60s now, you'd have to do a full tutorial on how to start and stop it, really, wouldn't you? Whereas a car from the 80s, pretty much, I mean, it might have a choke, it might not. But apart from that, it'll be similar.
Yes.
And instrumentation will be similar. Dashboards didn't change a great deal. Yeah, so I think we had a quantum leap between there. And actually, those cars that we just talked about, that mid-80s, mid-90s to, let's say, 2005, 2006, just to make it neat, those are the cars that are growing in value the quickest right now, aren't they? And in my head, I want to try and remind people that actually the absolute bargains at the moment are cars of the 50s, a bit of 60s, and even 40s and pre-war. And there's some absolute gems out there, and they're not selling for much money because there's a total lack of awareness about them. But it doesn't mean they're crap.
Yeah. We'll talk about this another time. I wanted to mention briefly that Slate pickup truck, which was announced a while ago, but I've seen that they've been showing it to some people, I think a later prototype or something. But
looks
one of the things people seem really jazzed about is the fact it has wind-up windows. And I'm a bit like, yes, I get it, less to go wrong, but electric windows are very rarely a failure point in a car that's under 15 years old. It's like,
under 15.
At the same time, it's got a TFT instrument pack. It's got like it's got a screen for an instrument pack. It's like if you were embracing simplicity, it feels like the wind-up windows are a bit token on that. I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
I'd rather have needles, dash needles. So if one of the pieces of instrument goes wrong, the others are okay. I'd much rather. This feels this like sort of some kind of philosophical magazine column. What is simplicity in cars? But anyway, we should bring this towards the dock so it can be tied up safely. Yeah. Should we?
Or dragged up the land so that Jonny can attempt to launch it again in a really sketchy way. All right, well, before we go, three things to tell you. The first one is that Jonny's engaged in a very odd project to tour the cliffs of eastern England and Scotland, setting up a medieval humiliation device and then locking the former lead singer of Marillion into it while overlooking the water, under the working title North Sea Fish Stocks. If that's not to your taste, then there's always the Late Break Show. Lots of excellent videos on there.
You fool! You fool!
I said I'd stop, and I just what's happening on Late Break?
We've got the latest video will be an update on my Matrarancho WRX body swap project. So there's a roundup, as they would say, on that. And I'm just putting together all the other videos that will go out over the Christmas period, so that I can have a bit of time off, but without showing any sign of cutting corners with video quality. So that's what's happening on that front, Richard.
Smashing.
Yes.
All right. Second thing I wanted to say is a variety of promotional messages. First of all, if you're listening to this the day it comes out, the 8th of December, 1 week today, on the 15th of December, we are doing a live show in Bristol. And last I looked, there are still some tickets available. It's in the Tobacco Factory Theatre where we were last time we were in Bristol. It's an excellent venue.
It is a really good venue, yeah.
It'll be our last show of the year. We might be a bit Christmassy. There is also a panto in the same theatre, and they've told us that we have to work around some bits of their set. So that could be interesting, but we're going to give it a go.
Let's make it Christmassy, everybody.
And let's make it Christmassy. But so that'll be nice. So 15th of December in Bristol. Go to smithandsniff.com and follow the link to the live show page to get tickets. Hopefully there'll still be some available by the time you get there. And
we'll have lots of merch there to sell if you can't be bothered to mail order such things. You just want to physically go and touch a hat before buying it.
And I hope we'll have some of my books after they sold out quickly at Derby, but actually there seems to be some kind of weird logjam with getting some more in, so that might be a lovely disaster for me. But why not just go on to Amazon and order my new book, Petrolhead, collection of my Evo columns, which is available to buy as an ebook or a paperback, or ask someone to get it for you for Christmas.
Yeah.
And the third thing I was going to tell you is that, you know, the song My Way, very famous song, of course, Frank Sinatra.
Yes.
And all that. My Way could have been written by David Bowie.
Could have.
This is it's a weird one, this, but basically, My Way is based on a French song called Comme d'habitude. And a song publishing company commissioned David Bowie, then a young up-and-coming singer-songwriter, to write some English words for Comme d'habitude. And so he did and submitted them, and the publisher went, nah, I don't like these. They then got Paul Anka to have a go, and he came up with My Way and gave it to Frank Sinatra, and it became that song that's always played at people's funerals. And Bowie, the brilliant thing is that Bowie was a bit pissed off about this, and so he decided to write a parody of My Way after it came out. And his parody of My Way is what we now know as Life on Mars.
Oh, really?
And it's so, you can hear it in a way. Obviously, it kind of evolved into something different and brilliant.
Very
in its
different.
own right.
Yeah.
But yeah, the roots of Life on Mars are that Bowie was pissed off that his attempt to adapt a French song
Wasn't accepted.
were rejected, and then My Way became a huge hit.
Well, wow. Well, can I add a fourth thing very briefly? If you're at a loose end, go on the internet. I found it. I was served it on Instagram, and look up a chap called Typhoon Tommy Nuttall, who is a freestyle jet skiing man who is well over 60 years old. It's quite it's pretty weird, but I guarantee it will make you giggle. Never seen a man on a jet ski doing things like handstands, headstands, and kind of sitting on the handlebars and like trying to spray people in passing boats with his white spray.
Okay, sounds good. All right, well, anyway, that's all fabulous. Thank you for listening. We'll be back on Friday with an otter sot, and then a new episode on Monday, and hopefully see a few of you next Monday in Bristol. Until then,
Come to Brizzle.
goodbye.
Cheers, mate, guys. Bye then, guys. See you in Brizzle, guys.
So you've enjoyed this podcast, but you've had a thought. Is there a way here today that you could show support? Well, you could join our Patreon. What wonders that it brings? Early shows and extra notes on that side of things. You could buy our merchandise. We've mugs and hats, but still no ties. One day we will make those pies, but in the meantime, guys, hey guys, like and subscribe, and maybe leave a nice review. Like and subscribe, we know you know just what to do. Like and subscribe, we don't want to take the piss. Like and subscribe, but we were told to ask for this. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe. Like and subscribe.
It's a god-awful small affair, but I did it my way.